All right, I'm with Bob Moriarty, founder of 321gold.com. Bob, how are you today?
I'm doing really good. And again, and you mentioned this off camera, nothing's going on. We have nothing that we could talk about. We need to pick one of the basketball teams, and you tell me who you're for, and I'll tell you who I'm for, and we can discuss the coaches.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, March Madness is going on, and there were some good games yesterday. So there's a lot of basketball to talk about. The Florida Gators had a good game against Texas Tech yesterday. But let's talk about gold. Let's start with gold, because I think that is a good way to enter the conversation, and we could probably find ourselves wandering quite a bit from that starting point. But $3,100 gold. Well, I mean, spot is what, 3,080, but it
hit 3,100.
It hit 3,100, yeah. So $3,100 gold, and it wasn't too long ago. Actually, it was just last month, February, that we were almost down to 2,800. So this is a 10% jump in just a matter of weeks. What is going on here with gold?
That's a really good question. It's a question that every investor should be thinking about. Many times we've talked, and I describe gold as an insurance policy against chaos. And I believe that's the most important role that it plays. However, gold is also a thermometer of geopolitical risk. And the geopolitical risk and the risk of World War III is higher than it has ever been in our lifetimes. And we easily could be 2 weeks away from World War III.
Yeah, the World War III. Well, first of all, that's not the first time you've said that. So let's just say that. Definitely, when I hear the rhetoric, about bombing Iran, it concerns me. I think it should concern everybody. But also, we know from history that this is often just rhetoric, right?
Well, yeah, but sometimes it's real. Okay, one thing, and I think we should mention this, and I don't think I've ever mentioned it to you before. When you're talking about geopolitics and when you're talking about conflicts and war, who lies?
Governments?
Well, if you got 10 parties who are involved one way or another, how many of those 10 people are lying through their teeth?
Probably all of them.
All of them. Okay, this idea that there's good guys and there's bad guys, and the good guys tell the truth and the bad guys lie, bullshit. Everybody lies, and they lie all the time. So the fact that people say, well, gee, we could be going to war shortly, it's fairly meaningless, because that is used as a smokescreen to cover up plans. However, when you're going to go to war, there are things that you must do that are not the smokescreen. There are 7 B-2 bombers on Diego Garcia right now. There are 20 or so, and let's see what we've got here. We've got 7 B-2s. We've got numerous C-17 transport planes, 10 KC-135 refueling tankers, an Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine, and 2 carrier groups, all of which are in range of Iran. Israel has said they are going to attack Iran by the middle of the year. There was a top secret document released a month ago that said there would be an attack on Iran in March. And Douglas McGregor said plans are in motion and there could be attack as early as mid-March. Now, let me read something to you. You know who Colonel Lawrence Wilkinson is, right?
No.
He's the military aide Colin Powell.
Okay.
Okay, retired. Okay, but he was a military aide to Colin Powell. This is a quote from him from UNZ.com. A war with Iran would be 10 to 15 times worse than the Iraq war in terms of casualties and costs, and we would lose. We would undoubtedly lose. And I agree with him 100%. We cannot win that war. There is nothing that we have that would be suitable for winning the war. Everything we do will harm us. And I'll go you one better. Okay. Why would the United States attack Iran?
Well, I mean, there's a few reasons, but the case that will be made to the public is they're about to get a nuclear weapon.
Oh, okay. Hang on. Says who?
Says me, just based upon everything I read and everything I know. That will be the case that will be made to the public. You know, we have to do this because they're 1 week away from a nuclear weapon, and they're not. They're not making a deal. You know.
Okay, and who in the United States government would be the best officials to comment on whether Iran has a nuclear weapons program?
Well, that's a whole nother question, and that's past my level of knowledge. I'm sure that there's some organizations like the IEA that could weigh in on that, but I don't know.
How about the director of national intelligence?
Yeah.
Sitka.
Yeah.
Would she be qualified?
I don't know if she's qualified, but I'm sure she could get access to the information.
Okay. This is a direct quote from her. This was posted on March 26th, so it's current. The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader blah blah has not authorized the nuclear weapons program he suspended in 2003. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. Now, yes, we're being told Iran is weeks away from a nuclear weapon. That was on Fox. But the top intelligence person in the United States working for Donald Trump just came out and said there is no Iranian nuclear weapons program. And I believe it.
I don't know what to believe anymore, Bob. But yeah, by the way, it's not the IEA, it's the IAEA. That would be the
no. You're talking. Well, yeah, you changed it. You're correct.
Yeah, the IAEA would be the nuclear organization on a global scale. But yeah, so yeah, I would think that national intelligence had, I'm sure the CIA would have some knowledge of this topic. There's probably quite a few organizations, deep state organizations that might have some knowledge about this, but whether they will tell the truth or not, that's another question.
Good
right?
Good point. I mean, no question. You just raised something that's very valuable. When you're being told something, I'm talking to your audience. When you're being told something, it's absolutely imperative that whether you believe the person because he's saying what you want to hear or not, there are so many people lying about so much stuff that you cannot take one source and say this is credible. However, is Benjamin Netanyahu lying about Iran having a nuclear weapons program shortly?
I mean, if shortly means in the next month, I would say probably, yes, he's lying.
Okay, if he said it in 1995, was he lying?
Well, obviously, that was 30 years ago.
No, it wasn't.
You said 1995.
Actually, yeah, I'm sorry. It was exactly 30 years ago. The really interesting thing is Netanyahu's been saying for 30 years, more than 30 years, that Iran was on the verge of a nuclear weapons program. If we attack Iran under the guise that they have a nuclear weapons program, it will result in the destruction of both Israel and the United States. It is a war we cannot win. We do not have the weapons. No matter what we do, we are going to lose. And the only question is it a catastrophic loss or is it just a geopolitical loss? I'm quite shocked at Trump's reaction to Russia and to Zelensky. Trump comes into office saying he could end the war in 24 hours. That was 2 months ago. Mm-hmm. He goes to Russia and he says, okay, we want a ceasefire. And he got some agreement that there would be a ceasefire of sorts. There would be no attacks on energy facilities, and there would be no attacks on shipping. So Ukraine and Russia could ship grain to Europe. The interesting thing is the ceasefire was violated immediately.
Yeah, I mean, okay. No, I'm not going to get into that time, but let's go back to Iran because you're giving me deja vu to 2008, and I'll tell you why you're giving me deja vu to 2008. I remember, I'm old enough to remember early in 2008. So this was still when George W. Bush was president. This was his last year in office. And there were a lot of Republicans banging the war drums for bombing Iran early in 2008. It never happened, but there was a whole lot of talk about it, a whole lot of fears that it was about to play out. And then something else got us sidetracked. I don't know if you recall, but there was a financial crisis that really kicked off in a big way around May, June of 2008, and then got worse and worse as the year proceeded. So at the beginning of the year, there was all this talk about bombing Iran, but once stock market started tumbling and the shit hit the fan in the economy, you didn't hear anything else about it, and it didn't happen, right? So I feel like this is a similar scenario where here we are at the end of March. Trump's talking about bombing Iran. Stock market is pretty wobbly. Gold's at 3,100. Obviously, gold is sending a signal that all is not well, maybe in multiple domains of the world, both in terms of the geopolitics and also in terms of global trade and the economy, right? So this is, it doesn't repeat exactly. This is 17 years later, but sometimes it rhymes a little bit. This feels like it's rhyming with 2008.
Okay, I'm going to ask you kind of a trick question. You ever been divorced?
No.
You missed something. It's an adventure. When two people decide to get divorced, there is not one divorce. There's half a dozen divorces. There is the physical divorce. There's the mental divorce. There's the legal divorce. There's the financial divorce. There's the child custody divorce. And there's all these variations that take place over a period of time. War is exactly the same. Okay. When you're doing intelligence work, there's two things you want to know. One thing is, what is the enemy's capabilities? And the other is, what is the enemy's intentions? And the intentions are not necessarily the same as their capabilities. If you were going to go bomb Iran, you would want to set up all your weapons like ducks in a row in advance. You would send 7 B-2s to Diego Garcia's. You would send either nuclear weapons or bombs to Diego Garcia. You would send refueling aircraft to Diego Garcia because there would be attacks from Israel and from other bases in the Middle East. Okay, there are all these things that you have to do in advance. So if Iran and Russia and China are looking at the capabilities of the United States is now capable of a nuclear attack on Iran in the next 24 hours. Now, remember what I said, intentions are not the same as capabilities. They have the capability, and you have to take that into account. I mean, what scares me here is that from a rational point of view, Iran hadn't done anything to the United States. Iran is not a threat to the United States. Iran does not have a nuclear weapons program, according to the top intelligence people in the United States. And the fact that they might support the Houthis, it's not our fight. Are we willing to risk World War III when there is nothing that you can gain out of it, however you could destroy your country? And my answer would be that would be incredibly stupid to do. And I believe that you talk about 2008 because that's a real good point. There is a group. Now, I don't think that you can quantify exactly who they are, but there's a group, we'll call them the neocons, that have supported a war in the Middle East for 20 or 30 years, okay? Mm-hmm. They've been totally out of control. And Zelensky wants World War III. Israel wants World War III. The United States wants World War III. France and UK are talking about sending troops physically into Ukraine. Okay. I actually see no possible scenario where we won't have a major conflict, and it could go nuclear so quickly, it just scares shit out of me. But I'll be real candid. That's why I'm in France.
You know, so going back to I mean, I don't want World War III either. I don't think any rational person does. But going back to gold and this $3,100 gold. I mean, Bob, we've had conversations many years ago when gold was $1,100 an ounce. And we talked about how gold was going to go to 2,000, go to 3,000. And here we are. We're at 3,100. I mean, $3,000 gold. If somebody got up on CNBC or wrote an article on 321 Gold in 2015 and said gold is going to $3,000, I would say 90% of people would laugh at them and say they're a tinfoil hat crackpot. And here we are at $3,100 gold. What's that?
That is a 1 gram gold bar. Okay, one of the things that I do in my spare time, and because Barbara died, unfortunately, I got a lot of spare time, so I make jewelry. Barbara and I were buying gold as far back as 1999 at the bottom. These little 1 gram bars, okay, at 3,100 are worth $100 a piece.
Mm-hmm.
We paid 10. Okay, so I believe gold is very expensive, but if it works as a thermometer suggesting geopolitical problems, and what other measures would support that? Do you have any idea of how much money was lost in total in the stock market on Thursday and Friday?
Oh, it's got to be well over $1 trillion.
How about 2 trillion
Mm-hmm.
in 20 hours of trading? Okay, now we had talked, and I want you to give me credit. A month ago, 2 months ago, I said I thought the stock market was going to top, and I thought the cryptocurrencies were going to top, and the money would come back flowing into gold and gold shares. And to the extent that I think I can take credit for that being accurate. However, and what's scary is $3,100 gold scares me, and $2 trillion disappearing from the stock market in 2 days scares me. And I think the total value of the crypto markets is $3 trillion. So we can have multiples of trillions of dollars in losses, and that's all saying something. And I believe there's an excellent chance that it's saying the decision has already been made to go to war. I hope I'm wrong, but I think that's true.
I'm gonna give you credit for what you said a couple months ago, and that the stock market was going down, and money, and so was crypto. You're right about both, and money would flow into natural resources and gold. So gold, yes, money has flowed in. Natural resources, a little less so, but yes, we have seen
new highs for copper.
Yeah, new highs for copper. But I was talking more about the stocks like Freeport or Rio Tinto or BHP. They've moved up, but still not very strong charts on the big producers.
You are on the verge of saying something really significant. There was something somebody sent to me over the weekend. I get 150 emails a day, so I cannot correlate what I read every day and go back and track it exactly. But somebody sent me something, and he had talked to a stockbroker and said, hey, gold's $3,100. What do your other investors think? And he said, they don't give a shit. It's totally off their radar. None of them has invested in gold or gold stocks. And of course, that's the ideal situation. Now, the big companies, Freeport and those companies have gained somewhat. The juniors have just barely started to move. That's a good sign. I'm a contrarian. I don't like it when everybody wants in on the market. So I believe we're just in the early stages of this market.
Yeah, I think there's a good case to be made for that. So going back to gold, I'm going to disagree with you on your assertion that the gold move is largely due to the prospect of bombing Iran.
No, not largely, possibly. Okay. It does serve as a geopolitical thermometer sometimes, and unfortunately, in that situation, we're not going to know. But all of the evidence says there is no sentiment supporting gold. gold record high, copper record high, no sentiment supporting that. Something's making it go up, and it's going to make it go up a lot higher.
Yeah.
Because,
so this is, yeah. This is
because,
yeah.
Okay. Because the danger of nuclear war is so high, that has to outweigh anything else. I don't give a shit who the president is. I don't care if the Democrats win the midterm election. I don't care about tariffs with Mexico and Canada. Those are all interesting, but I don't care. I do care about the United States.
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't know why somebody would buy gold on the prospect of nuclear war. I'm not really sure how to invest in the case of nuclear war. I don't think anybody does. But what I will say for gold, and this is going to lead to a question, because you said the sentiment doesn't support $3,100 gold. So the situation we have today is heightened uncertainty around everything to do with the economy and financial markets. I think we can all agree on that. The last Fed meeting, all they were talking about was uncertainty. And we don't know how the tariffs are going to play out. We don't. I'm not even sure Trump knows exactly how the tariffs are going to play out, right? So there's a high level of uncertainty, but at the same time, consumers are seeing inflation being very high and trending up, and the Fed is still talking about more rate cuts. So from a macroeconomic standpoint, if you're an investor and you see that the central bank is planning to ease policy further in the face of rising inflation, that is the strongest buy signal you could ever get to buy a hard asset. So I don't think we have to overthink it too much. I think that the macroeconomic backdrop is supportive of gold and hard assets, and it also, supports like a metal like copper. Although I will say that I question, going back to that 2008 deja vu, if the economy deteriorates further, is copper really going to stay above $5 a pound?
Well, here's my point. If it does, then we got problems. Okay, now one thing, and I want you to give me credit for this too. Remember when I said I don't want to live in a world with $5,000 gold?
Yep.
I was a serious heart attack. I don't want to live in a world of $10 copper. Mm-hmm. I don't want to live in a world where the cryptocurrencies don't exist. Okay. I don't want to live in a world with 300 banks closing. And strangely enough, and Trump is somewhat guilty for just mixing things up beyond belief. Now, if you don't like his tariffs on Monday, don't worry about it, because they're going to be different on Tuesday. But some of the things, the Trump administration has made it crystal clear. They don't care if there's a recession or not. And he was talking about the tariffs on European cars, and he said, okay, cars get more expensive. Well, yeah, they do, Donald.
Yeah, he's got some comments out there that he needs to be a little more careful, because if that's an accurate quote, he says he doesn't care if they raise car prices 25%. Well, I guarantee you there's plenty of people that do care if people raise.
No. Name one. Okay. Yeah, that I have heard some of the most incredibly stupid comments from both sides, Republicans and Democrats. There is something very funny about Hillary Clinton talking about the latest fiasco with the Signal, thing, where a reporter who hates Trump was invited to listen in to a top secret meeting. And she was talking about, clearly they have no regard whatsoever for security or top secret information. I thought, wait a minute, this is Hillary Clinton talking, who talked about wiping 30,000 emails that were under subpoena. That's just a remarkable coincidence. But Trump has done a couple of things that astonish me. I think it's cryptocurrency meme coin the day before the inauguration. I thought that was really tacky.
Yeah, very, very tacky. Extremely tacky. There's been a few tacky things, including some of these pardons of big donors who were convicted of fraud. I want to ask you.
No, we need to go back to Kennedy and the
blackmail. I know.
Mail.
Yeah, we're gonna do that next. But I want to ask you, when should an investor sell their gold and silver? We talk a lot about buying gold and silver. We just agreed the price of gold is high. When should they sell their gold and silver?
When everybody wants it.
When everybody wants it.
Yeah, I just made the point that it appears right now that nobody wants it. The ETFs have been selling gold rather than loading up. There is information from brokers saying the general public just simply doesn't care about gold. So that's a good sign. You should sell when everybody wants it and the price of gold and silver is on the front page news.
Okay, I like that answer. I will say, though, there were selling from ETFs most of 2023 and early 2024, but we've seen some inflows here in Q1 2025. So actually, retail investors and hedge funds are buying gold here in Q1 2025. So even though it's not front page news, they're not telling you on CBS and NBC to go out and buy gold at Costco. People are buying gold. Let's talk about Kennedy, and I want to talk about two Kennedys: Robert Kennedy Jr. and John F. Kennedy, the former president. Let's start with the John F. Kennedy first, because that's in chronological order. We got a lot of those files. A lot of files. I mean, I spent a few hours on this, and I was reading about revolutions in Chile, in Venezuela, in Guatemala, just seemingly just random CIA operations throughout the 50s and 60s. I'm not sure what it had to do with John F. Kennedy's assassination, aside from the fact it was the CIA. But really, no smoking gun. Nothing we didn't know. I mean, if you've researched this assassination, there's nothing in those files, as far as I can tell, that people didn't know already. So is this just a big nothing burger?
Yes and no. You have to ask yourself the question, if it's a nothing burger, and I think it was a nothing burger, why was the CIA so determined to keep it filed, top secret? And I think the answer is simple. I think that Schlesinger understood in 1961 what a threat the CIA was to the future of the United States. And of course, the United States was just getting started in Vietnam, okay? But we had Vietnam, we had Somalia, we had Sudan, we had Afghanistan, we had Pakistan, we had Iraq, we had Syria. The CIA has participated in every single one of them. And I will tell you, as a former intelligence officer who was in combat for 20 months, we talked about the ceasefire between Russia and the Ukraine. Part of the agreement was not to attack each other's energy facilities. Putin had actually launched hundreds or thousands of drones to attack Iran's energy facilities. When he agreed to the ceasefire, he ordered his generals to destroy the drones. And the drones were either blown up in midair or they were recalled. Putin adhered to the ceasefire regarding energy. Ukraine just made 3 attacks on Russian energy facilities in violation of the ceasefire, and they were using U.S.-supplied HIMARS missiles to do it, which require U.S. satellite tracking. So, again, Russia adhered to the agreement and Ukraine didn't adhere to the agreement. And Trump has said he's pissed off at Putin, which I find very funny.
Bob, you changed the subject. So let's go back to John F. Kennedy, because one of the things that Trump campaigned on was he's going to let all the truth out. Martin Luther King, Robert F. Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, these 3 major assassinations of the 1960s. Who knows? Maybe even Malcolm X, although I don't think that's as big of a scandal. I think we kind of know what happened there. But 3 big assassinations that were clearly covered up to some extent, to varying extents in the 1960s. And Trump actually on record saying, well, you know, I know what happened, and you know, we're going to have to learn some lessons from this. We're going to have to get the truth out and learn some lessons from this. He said that a few times.
Right.
What lessons are we learning, and what is the truth? Because as far as I can tell, they're obfuscating this. They're still hiding the real smoking guns, the real truth. I know what I believe happened, and it was orchestrated by high levels of intelligence organizations in the U.S., including naval intelligence, including the CIA. And they use their tentacles to operate the Secret Service, the FBI, the Dallas PD, and cover up the whole thing. I mean, I believe that's what happened. But why aren't we getting the truth when the president campaigned on, I'm going to get the truth out?
No. What he said was he was going to release the files.
Mm-hmm.
The real files, they've been gone for years. Okay. If you go back to under the Biden administration, the woman who was involved in intelligence work, who was in charge of Abu Ghraib, okay, they destroyed all those records. Okay. I think the smoking gun, and clearly anyone who goes through those thousands of documents, the smoking gun is how dirty the CIA was. I totally agree with you. Okay. Absolutely agree with you. But I think all the smoking gun documents have been long since destroyed. I think the measure of the truth is going to come with the Epstein files, okay? Because we know the FBI seized thousands of videotapes. We know they've got records of all the people who attended. Now, I'll tell you, okay, it's like Combs, okay. I don't know when he's scheduled for suicide, but I don't think anybody's going to let him walk into a courtroom, okay.
You're talking about Puff Daddy.
Yeah, exactly. The Whitney Webb has written a brilliant book. I think it's a 2-book series about how the intelligence services, and this is both the British, the French, the Germans, the Americans, the Australians, the Israelis, blackmail people, okay? And they get people to do what they want to do because they catch them in compromising positions. Now, do you remember when the Obamacare issue came in front of the Supreme Court?
No.
Okay. There was a question about whether Obamacare was a tax or not. Okay. And if it was a tax, it was illegal. And if it was not, it was perfectly okay. And it went from the Supreme Court. And the guy who wrote the opinion and made the critical vote was Chief Justice Roberts, okay, who was one of the Epstein clients. For Roberts to conclude that Obamacare was not a tax, he would have to do 14 half loops, okay, and a swan dive going off a 3-foot diving board. And he concluded that Obamacare was not a tax and it was perfectly legal. Now, this takes us back to RFK Jr. And I think RFK Jr.'s position on Israel, it's totally contrary to everything that he's ever said. And he has come out now, and everything Israel wants to do, it's okay.
Okay, just hold on a second. Okay, just hold on a second. So let's put a bow tie on that. I agree with you. The real JFK files, the incriminating ones, were destroyed 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And it's documented that the Secret Service destroyed all of its files from fall 1963, literally a week before they had been ordered to turn it over to Congress during the 1990s. And it was accidental. It was just a clerical error that they destroyed all the parade files from fall of 1963. Obviously, those files had incriminating evidence of the actions of certain heads of the Secret Service that, led up to the assassination there in Dallas on November 22nd. So let's put a bow tie on that. The files don't exist. So those of us who care just need to do our own investigation based upon eyewitness accounts and the details that are still out there and make up our own minds as to what happened. I think it's pretty clear at this point for anybody who investigates it what happened. So let's go to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And apparently there is a scandal that's unfolding.
Okay. Hang on. At the time of 9/11, in the FAA centers, supervisors went out and collected every single tape recording of flight paths, communications, everything, and destroyed them. Okay, so that goes back to destroying records that are real, telling the truth. Okay, so let's go back to JFK Jr. And you were just about to talk about his dick flicks.
Well, evidently there's a scandal that's unfolding. I haven't seen any pictures and I don't know if I want to see them, but evidently there's quite a bit of pictures and video evidence of RFK Jr. doing some naughty things, and he's evidently been blackmailed for this content.
Well, let's tie two things together. Okay, Waltz has admitted he was the one that invited the journalist to the Signal meeting. And Waltz claimed he'd never met the journalist, had no idea who the journalist was. However, his cell phone showed a list of 100 journalists, and Waltz was, Goldberg was certainly one of them. Likewise, JFK Jr.'s latest girlfriend appears to have been a setup. Okay. And this is what the intelligence agencies do. She was a swallow. Okay. And she was sent in to catch RFK Jr. Of course, the beauty about RFK Jr. is there's a lot of women who would like to screw him, and there's a lot of women that he'd like to screw, and he got caught. And I think he's been blackmailed because his position regarding Israel is totally contrary to everything that he's ever said before. And I think Epstein was a spy. He was a spy for the Mossad, and he was a spy for the FBI. And I don't think those tapes are ever going to be released. I don't think we will ever see a real list of who the clients were.
Yeah, the Epstein list is a very charged topic, and it seems to me that the truth would be, if the unvarnished truth actually came out, it would be so damning to some powerful people that they'll stop at nothing to keep it out of the public eye. And just, it's interesting how these things happen, where all of a sudden he's in a maximum security jail in New York in 2019, and then he's dead the next morning, right? And the fact that all these JFK files were sitting around for 30 years, and then finally, when Congress actually asked for the authority to get a hold of them, suddenly that, like, none of them were available, and there were clerical errors that caused them all to be thrown out. So it's really uncanny how these things get covered up, and the stories that get made up to cover them up.
Okay, have you read Whitney Webb?
No, I have not, but I've heard about the book.
There are two books. It's called One Nation Under Blackmail, Volume 1, The Sordid Union Between Intelligence and Crime That Gave Rise to Jeffrey Epstein, and Volume 2. That came out in 2022. And I bought both books, and I only read the first one because she goes in and she has a thesis and she proves it. And she has another thesis and she proves it. And she has another thesis and she proves it. And you realize, wait a minute, we're being lied to about everything. And every government agency is part of this and corrupt. And they're really scary books. I mean, she is a great writer. I highly encourage people, go to Amazon, Whitney Webb, and she's written two great books. When you read this, you're just going, holy cow, I had no idea these people were so dirty. And I think that's the real, that's what's going on with the Trump administration. God, when I read about Stacey Abrams and $2 billion, you and I are old enough. We remember when $2 billion was real money. And now it's chump change the government throws. And you got 3 million government employees, and you got 26 million government credit cards. What? Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny. Let's go back to 2020 for a second. The 2 billion. I mean, I don't know all the details of that, but it appears that $2 billion was sent from the federal government, the Treasury General account, this massive unlimited bank account, to Stacey Abrams, some organization she has in Georgia, and who knows where the money went after that, right? But every American, or most Americans, got a little taste of this in 2020 when the CARES Act and then this stimulus check, I think it was $1,200 stimulus check, was signed by President Trump in his final year in office. And so a lot of Americans suddenly magically got $1,200 in their checking accounts. And then even more so, small business owners got all this help from the CARES Act, where some people were getting $100,000 plugged into their bank accounts overnight. Some people were perpetrating fraud and applying for multiple businesses that they just started up. And there was literally billions of dollars just thrown out, tens of billions of dollars throughout 2020. And everybody wondered, why is the stock market doing so well during a pandemic? Well, government just printing money.
The cynic in me, and granted, I am a cynic, and as hard as I work, I just can't keep up. I know you and I have talked about how the hell could the deficit increase $1 trillion in a little over 3 months. And everybody's scratching their head saying, where the hell is that money going? And the answer is, it was going everywhere. Okay. Every program they come up with turns out to be totally corrupt. You've got these people who are based in Washington, and they show their home in Ohio, so they get the government to pay for their place in Washington and an automobile and their credit cards and their telephone, and it's all fraud. Okay. And you look into the SBA, the Small Business Administration, where millions of dollars were given out to children under the age of 11. How does an 11-year-old fill out the form and collect tens of millions of dollars? And the answer is, and you raised a good point, it wasn't just the Democrats who were looting the system. The Republicans were looting the system too. And I believe this is true. It's the end of empire, and this is the kind of corruption you get at the end of empire.
Yeah, I think 2020 and 2021 was the most, egregious example of government waste, and both sides of the aisle, they both voted for it and they aligned on it because it was such a big giveaway. Everybody wanted a piece of this big, giveaway, and they could justify it through the pandemic, and it just is actually really incredible. And the amount of fraud that was attached to that CARES Act, they're still figuring it out, just how much. But we're talking about tens or hundreds of billions of dollars that was just literally wasted. And by the way, Bob, you said $1 trillion in 3 months. Well, I want to tell you that even with Trump in office now here in February, the U.S. government ran a $307 billion deficit just for the month of February, a short month, $307 billion. So don't extrapolate that out to 12 months because the number is very scary. But yeah,
hang on. No, hang on. Do you know what my reaction is to that?
No.
Thank God.
Well, why is that?
Because it was a short month. If it had been March, I mean, shit, it would have been another $100 billion. Now, I mean, it's scary, and for all of the never Trumpers and all of the always Trumpers, the Trump administration spending just as much money as the Democrats were. There is an argument, and I believe a convincing argument, that when governments realize they're functionally bankrupt, they will start a war in the belief they can write off the debt because of the war. And I think there's a good chance that that's what the Trump administration is doing, and that's very scary. I mean, remember what Elon Musk said about Social Security?
Yes. It's a Ponzi scheme.
It's a Ponzi scheme. Okay.
Yeah.
And we know how every Ponzi scheme ends. There's no other possible alternative. But nobody's saying, well, gee, we need to reduce Social Security. Everybody's saying, oh my God, you can't reduce Social Security. Of course, nobody wants to stop a Ponzi scheme.
All right, let's finish up with some junior mining real quick. Newfound Gold put out a resource estimate last week. The stock had been in a downtrend. It got whacked even harder. I listened to Eric Sprott do an interview where he said, hey, he is buying more, and he's committed to seeing this through. And he kind of said, I wasn't surprised that the resource estimate was lower than expectations, because often with these nuggety gold systems, that's what happens when they go to resource, because it's just the way that the calculations are done. They're conservative in terms of the total grade and size of the deposit. What do you your comments on Newfound Gold, Bob?
Okay, I would highly suggest that people go to YouTube and they look that up, because Eric Sprott used a term, he called it cutting. Now, do you understand what he was talking about? And at 43-101, when they talk about cutting, what did he mean?
So the way I understand it is that, like, for example, at Queensway, they have a lot of intercepts above 30 grams per ton gold, a lot. And so they basically cap those intercepts at 1 ounce and say, well, you can't get credit for that other 3 ounces in that gold intercept, because that's an aberration. You can't expect that to be consistent. So they're conservative in the grade estimation.
It is exceptionally conservative. Now, do you know, from a geological point of view, what is the analog to NFG's deposit? There is one deposit specifically I'm talking about that is exactly the same kind of deposit as Newfound Gold.
Fosterville.
Eric Sprott made $3 billion because of Fosterville. Fosterville was deeper, and Fosterville was more expensive. Eric Sprott is the most sophisticated investor in the world regarding those specific kinds of deposits, and he made $3 billion last time. And the difference between last time and this time is he's planning on making more this time. NFG responded positively on Friday, and correctly. People were hoping for 3, 4, 5, 6 million ounces in the 43-101. There were two issues. One is the management tended to want to drill off the whole project, and that was a mistake, because the spacing between holes is too big. And the other is, and you described it accurately, cutting or capping. You've got a 4 ounce intercept, and you report it as 1 ounce because you cannot necessarily duplicate it. When you have a nuggety gold system, such as Fosterville or Newfound Gold, you always are underestimating the gold. I believe it's a good deposit. They've changed management. I like the direction of the new management. I think Eric Sprott is absolutely correct. And I think that Newfound Gold is exceptionally cheap right now. And I'll be candid, Newfound Gold is no longer an advertiser. I don't have a dog in the fight, but I think it's a good deposit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can make a case both sides of this on Newfound Gold. I have no position in it. I have no dog in the fight. I could see how it's an opportunity here after the shares have really been washed out and the news is out. But then I can also say, well, so what's their next move? Well, they're going to put out a PEA. What if that disappoints? And then is it going to be time to permit this thing and build a mine to prove that it's better than it appears on this resource estimate? Well, that's going to take time and money too, right? So I could see both sides.
Wait. You're asking the wrong question.
Okay, what's the right question?
What is the impact of $3,100 gold on Newfound Gold?
Oh, I mean, obviously it's fantastic. I mean, this ore body
Bingo.
it should be economic. Yeah.
They did something that was absolutely extraordinary. And of course, they were an advertiser, and I knew all the people. They took a fire hose and they washed off the overburden. Okay, so they could actually see the rock, and the rock was under 2 meters or 3 meters of dirt and gravel and overburden. You could start mining at surface. They had visual gold. Okay. Newfound Gold is going to be a mine, is going to be an exceptionally profitable mine, and it's a better deposit than Fosterville. Fosterville took the company to a $18 billion market cap.
Yeah, Fosterville was an extraordinary, situation because it was already a permitted and operating mine. And then it just kept getting better at depth. It kept getting better and better and better the deeper that they drilled. And they're still mining that really high grade gold there at the Swan Zone. Bob, should a junior mining company ever buy back its shares? I mean, we know this is a capital intensive industry. Companies are always having to raise money. Should a junior mining company ever take the cash in its treasury and buy back its own stock?
No.
Okay. What about, I'm going to name a few other ones. You tell me which one you want to talk about. Snowline Gold, Sitka Gold, Banyan Gold, Dolly Varden Silver. Any of those you want to?
Stop right there. Sitka, Snowline, Trifecta, Banyan are in the Tombstone Gold Belt. Sitka drilled a 700-meter hole, something like this, and had 153 examples of VG in the core, and it was near the depth. Okay, it wasn't from the surface, it was near the depth. They will be reporting those results in 2 to 3 weeks. Banyan, I am really tempted to go in and buy. I think you're paying $7 an ounce for gold. Okay, because Tara Christie is married to the guy that was running the Eagle mine, I think that hurts Banyan. However, the Eagle mine is absolutely going to go back into production. once the First Nations figure out, wait a minute, we got $3,100 gold. Okay, why don't we do a little better engineering? Okay, next time. But Sitka's got extraordinary results. Snowline, somebody's going to come in and buy Snowline very soon. Trifecta is in the same area. They got some interesting deposits. One of the things that I know I've mentioned this before, remember what I said, there was 3 ways to make money and only 3 ways? All wealth comes from one of 3 ways.
Either you mine it, you grow it, or the government prints it.
Well, no, you just made that up. Or you manufacture it. But the interesting thing was, as I said, the agriculture in the United States is quite an effective system, and there's not very much you can do with the agriculture. It's going to take 15 to 30 years to rebuild the manufacturing in the United States if you do everything right. So the one way that you could increase the economic efficiency of the United States was have the government pour some money into mining. And I absolutely believe Trump has signed a resolution, and I believe the government's going to actually get to the point they're going to start pouring money into juniors. I think the return on investment would be absolutely extraordinary. You have 1,000 juniors out there starving. You know, they're sending their kids out to sell newspapers on the corner. They need the money. But you've got hundreds of great companies with good deposits, and you got $3,100 gold.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. You're absolutely right. That executive order, if anybody hasn't read that, also go to my Substack, and I wrote about it and commented on it. Goldfinger Capital. That executive order is a very big deal. And if they do half of what is outlined in that order, it's going to be fantastic for the U.S. hard rock mining industry. An industry that has been neglected for, I don't even know how long, 100 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Bob, thank you very much for your time. This was a wide-ranging conversation. Until next time, cheers.
Okay. Can you give me 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay. Dave Cullum comes out with his year in review every year, and he posts it on Peak Prosperity. But it's like 125,000 words, and it's hard to read. So I put 3 of his books into book format, and he just released the 2024 year in release on Amazon last week. That's one of the most interesting books, and he's one of the most interesting writers that I've ever read. And I highly suggest people go to Amazon, take a look at the book. He is a brilliant writer, and he's a good thinker, and they will learn a lot.
Sounds good. I'll definitely check it out. Thank you, Bob.
Super deal. Thanks. Have a good weekend.